Have you ever felt like you're living a life that isn't yours? Take a moment to look at yourself. Look deeply. Are you really living the life you want, or are you playing a role that others have written for you? Carl Jung, one of the most revolutionary thinkers in the history of psychology, posed an uncomfortable but necessary question. When was the last time you chose yourself? Not out of convenience, not out of fear of loneliness, but as a profound act of self-love. Think about it for a moment. In a world that constantly bombards you with messages about how you should be, what you should seek, and how you should love, choosing yourself has become an almost rebellious act. And yet Jung showed us that it's precisely in this choice where our true freedom resides. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. These words from Jung resonate today more strongly than ever. In a society obsessed with appearances, with the superficial, with external validation, looking inward is a revolutionary act. When you were a child, you probably had a natural connection with your true self. You knew what you liked, what made you feel alive, but over time that connection weakened. The expectations of your parents, your teachers, your friends began to weigh more than your own desires. And so, little by little, you lost touch with your essence. Jung understood this perfectly. He knew that life's greatest challenge wasn't conquering the outside world, but recovering that connection with our inner world, with what he called the self. And in this process of reconnection, we discover a fundamental truth. We cannot truly love others until we learn to love ourselves completely. But what does it really mean to love oneself? We're not talking about narcissism or selfishness. The self-love that Jung described is much deeper. It's the recognition and acceptance of all our parts, even those we prefer to keep in the shadow. The shadow, that powerful concept in Jungian psychology, represents everything we reject about ourselves. Our fears, our insecurities, our darkest desires. Most people spend their lives running from their shadow, projecting it onto others, denying it. But Jung taught us that the true path to wholeness, to complete self-love, involves embracing that shadow, integrating it. Because when you deny parts of yourself, when you repress or hide them, you're sending a clear message to your unconscious. I am not worthy of being loved completely, and that message, that limiting belief, is inevitably reflected in your relationships. You attract people who only love parts of you, who cannot or will not see your totality. And you settle for these halves, for these half-loves, because deep down you believe that's all you deserve. Does this sound familiar? Perhaps you've been in relationships where you feel you can't show yourself completely, where you hide your emotions, your thoughts, your desires for fear of rejection. Or maybe you've attracted partners who only value certain aspects of you, while criticizing or ignoring others. This is not a coincidence. It's a direct reflection of your relationship with yourself. Jung explained it clearly. What you deny submits you. What you accept transforms you. When you begin to accept all your parts, when you stop fragmenting yourself to please others, something magical happens. You no longer need external validation because you found the most powerful source of validation, your own being. And that's when your relationships begin to transform. You no longer look for someone to complete your voids because you've learned to fill yourself. You no longer tolerate half-loves because you've experienced complete love with yourself. And this isn't abstract theory. It's a psychological reality that Jung observed over and over in his practice. The problem is that we live in a culture that teaches us exactly the opposite. From a young age, we're bombarded with fairy tales where the prince or princess comes to rescue us, to complete us. We grow up with the idea that we need another person to be happy, to feel fulfilled. And so, instead of seeking our internal wholeness, we desperately seek someone to fill our voids. But Jung reminded us that this approach is doomed to failure. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Healthy relationships aren't ones where two incomplete people unite to form a whole, but where two whole beings meet and enhance each other. Think about your past relationships. How many times have you felt like you were losing yourself to please the other person? How many times have you changed your opinions, your tastes, even your dreams, just to fit into what you thought the other person expected of you? This is what Jung would call a loss of soul, a disconnection with your true self. And the saddest part is that no matter how much you try to please, no matter how hard you work to be what you think others want you to be, it will never be enough. Because authenticity is like a magnet for kindred souls, while falseness only attracts superficial and unsatisfying relationships. The acceptance of oneself is the essence of the moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life. Jung understood that the true ethical challenge isn't meeting social expectations, but being true to your own essence. And when you begin this journey of authenticity, the universe responds in surprising ways. Suddenly, you begin to attract people who resonate with your truth, who appreciate your wholeness, not because you're actively seeking these connections, but because you've raised your energetic frequency. You've stopped operating from a place of lack and begun to radiate fullness. This is what Jung called synchronicity, those seemingly casual but meaningful events that appear orchestrated by a higher intelligence. When you align with your truth, when you choose yourself, the universe conspires in your favor. Fortunate coincidences multiply, the right people appear at the right time, and you begin to feel that there's a greater purpose guiding your steps. But this path is not easy. I won't lie to you. Choosing yourself, loving yourself completely, demands courage. It requires that you face your deepest fears, that you dare to look at those parts of yourself that you've kept in the shadow. And sometimes this process can be painful. Jung knew this well. There is no birth of consciousness without pain, he said. And it's because to be reborn, to awaken to a more authentic way of being, we must first die to our old ways of thinking and acting. We must let go of the masks, the roles, the expectations we've internalized. How many times have you found yourself saying yes when you really wanted to say no? How many times have you repressed your emotions, your desires, your needs, just to keep the peace, to not inconvenience others? Every time you do this, every time you deny yourself to please others, you're sending a clear message to your psyche. Others matter more than I do. And over time, this disconnection with your truth manifests as anxiety, depression, physical illnesses. Your body, that ancestral wisdom we carry within, always knows when you're living in contradiction with your essence. It sends you signals, first subtle, then increasingly intense. Jung called it neurosis, that internal tension that arises when we live in discord with our true self. But there's good news. It's never too late to begin this journey back to yourself. It's never too late to decide that you deserve complete love, that you won't settle for halves. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Rumi reminded us, in a perspective that Jung would have deeply appreciated. The barriers are those defense mechanisms we've built over the years. The fear of rejection, the fear of intimacy, the fear of being truly seen. Jung called them complexes, those emotional knots that form in our unconscious and affect our behavior in the present. Perhaps as a child you learned that love was conditional, that they only loved you when you behaved in a certain way, when you met certain expectations. And so, without realizing it, you internalized the belief that you weren't worthy of being loved for who you really are. You began to build a persona, a social mask that you presented to the world while hiding your true self. Jung called this mask the persona, from the Latin personare, which means to sound through. The persona is like an actor playing a role, using a mask to project a certain image. And while we all need some degree of social adaptation, the problem arises when we identify so much with the mask that we forget who we really are underneath it. The persona is what in reality one is not, but what oneself as well as others think one is. This distinction is crucial because as long as we continue to confuse our mask with our authentic self, we'll continue to attract superficial relationships, based on appearances and expectations, not genuine connection. The path to self-love, to the psychological integrity that Jung promoted, begins with an act of courage. Taking off the mask, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, authentic, human. It's not easy. In fact, it can be terrifying. Because the mask has protected you for so long that the idea of living without it can seem impossible. What will happen if I show my true self? Will they reject me? Will I end up alone? These fears are understandable. We've all felt them. But Jung reminded us that the real risk isn't in showing ourselves, but in hiding. What you deny submits you, what you accept transforms you. When you begin to accept all your parts, even those you consider imperfect or unacceptable, something extraordinary happens. Instead of feeling more vulnerable, you feel stronger, because you no longer have anything to hide, nothing to defend. You've found that immovable core of self-acceptance that no one can take away from you. And from that place of self-acceptance, from that complete and unconditional self-love, your relationships transform. You no longer tolerate behaviors you once allowed. You no longer settle for crumbs of affection when you know you deserve the full feast. You no longer desperately seek the approval of others because you've found the only approval that really matters, your own. He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakes. This quote from Jung invites us to deep introspection. Because society constantly pushes us to look outside, to seek happiness in possessions, in achievements, in external recognition. But the true transformation, the true awakening, occurs when we dare to look within. What will you find when you look within yourself? Probably a mixture of light and shadow, of strengths and weaknesses, of certainties and doubts. And that's okay. That's being human. Jung taught us that integrity isn't about being perfect, but about being complete, about accepting our totality, our contradictions, our humanity. I do not become myself by seeking my own good, but by seeking the good of others, not in isolation, but in community. This apparent Jungian paradox contains a profound truth. Authentic self-love doesn't isolate us from others, it connects us more deeply. Because when we love ourselves completely, when we integrate all our parts, we become more empathetic, more compassionate, more capable of seeing and accepting others in their totality. Think about those relationships that truly nourish you, that make you feel seen and valued. Aren't they the ones where you can be yourself, without filters, without masks? Aren't they the ones where you feel that the other person accepts you completely, with your lights and your shadows? This is what Jung would call a relationship of mutual individuation, where two beings who are on their own path of growth meet and enhance each other. But to attract these relationships, you must first become that kind of person for yourself. You must treat yourself with the same acceptance, the same respect, the same compassion that you wish to receive from others. That behavior we're seeking in others, we ourselves are unable to show. The critic within you must be silenced. Jung reminds us that the way we talk to ourselves sets the standard for how we allow others to talk to us. Are you kind to yourself when you make a mistake, or do you sink into destructive self-criticism? Do you celebrate your achievements, or do you obsessively focus on your failures? Do you treat yourself with patience and understanding, or do you demand an unattainable perfection from yourself? The way you answer these questions reveals a lot about your ability to attract and maintain healthy relationships. Jung understood that the relationship with yourself is the foundation of all your other relationships. If you treat yourself harshly, you'll attract people who treat you harshly. If you deny yourself unconditional love, you'll attract people who also deny it to you. If you only accept parts of yourself, you'll attract people who only love parts of you. But when you begin to treat yourself with love, with respect, with total acceptance, something extraordinary happens. People who cannot offer you that same level of love begin to disappear from your life. Not because you actively reject them, but because there's no longer an energetic resonance. Your frequency has changed, and only those who vibrate at a similar frequency can remain in your orbit. This is what Jung would call the law of psychological attraction. It's not magic or magical thinking, it's deep psychology. We project onto others our own unconscious beliefs about what we deserve. And when those beliefs change, when we begin to believe that we deserve complete love and not halves, our projections also change. Until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This powerful quote from Jung reminds us that as long as we're not conscious of our patterns, our limiting beliefs, our emotional wounds, we'll keep repeating the same scenarios over and over. And the most tragic part is that we'll blame destiny, bad luck, others, without recognizing that we ourselves are the creators of our reality. How many times have you found yourself in the same painful situation, with different people but identical patterns? How many times have you wondered why you keep attracting the same type of partners, friendships, bosses? Jung would tell us it's not a coincidence. It's your unconscious manifesting in your external reality, seeking to be recognized, integrated, healed. The first step to changing these patterns is to make them conscious. Observe them without judgment, with curiosity, with compassion. Ask yourself, what is this situation showing me about myself? What unconscious belief am I projecting? What part of me is seeking to be recognized and loved? Jung called this process shadow work. It's deep work, sometimes uncomfortable, but incredibly liberating. Because when you start to see your patterns, when you start to understand your projections, you have the power to change them. You're no longer a victim of your unconscious. You become a conscious collaborator in your own evolution. And it's in this inner work that we find the key to not accepting halves in our relationships. Because when you've made peace with your shadow, when you've integrated all your parts, you no longer need others to complete you. You present yourself to the world as a whole being, complete in yourself, seeking connections that expand your being, not fill your voids. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Jung understood that true relationships transform us. They don't leave us the same. They take us to a deeper level of self-knowledge, of growth. But this transformation is only possible when both people are willing to see themselves completely, to show themselves completely, to love themselves completely. Have you ever experienced that feeling of being with someone who really sees you, who seems to understand parts of you that you hadn't even recognized? That's the magic of deep relationships. They not only reflect who we are, but who we can become. They show us possibilities that we might not have even imagined. But here comes the crucial part. To attract these transformative relationships, you must be willing to do the inner work first. You must be willing to face your fears, to integrate your shadow, to love yourself unconditionally. You can't skip these steps and expect someone else to do it for you. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. This invitation to introspection is perhaps Jung's most valuable legacy. It reminds us that all the answers we seek, all the connections we yearn for, begin with that primordial connection with ourselves. When you look at yourself with honesty, when you accept yourself with compassion, when you love yourself completely, you're sending a clear message to the universe. I will not settle for less than I deserve. And the universe, that higher intelligence that Jung intuited in his studies on synchronicity, responds accordingly. People begin to appear in your life who resonate with your truth, who appreciate your authenticity, who celebrate your wholeness. Not because you're actively seeking these connections, but because you've become a magnet for them through your own inner work. Jung explained it this way. What you deny submits you. What you accept transforms you. When you accept all your parts, even those that society has taught you to reject, you transform. You become a more complete, more authentic version of yourself, and that authenticity is irresistible to kindred souls. But be careful, this doesn't mean that the path is simple. Often, before attracting these deep relationships, we experience a period of solitude, of apparent emptiness. Jung called this the dark night of the soul, that moment when we let go of the old but the new hasn't yet arrived. It's natural to feel fear during this transition. It's natural to wonder if you're doing the right thing by raising your standards, by refusing to accept less than you deserve. But Jung would remind us that this empty space is necessary. It's the blank page where you'll write the next chapter of your life. You cannot kindle a fire without a shadow. This apparent Jungian contradiction contains a profound truth. You cannot experience a true, deep, and transformative love without first having faced the darkness of your own being, without having made peace with your most vulnerable, most wounded, most human parts. So, if at this moment you feel alone, if you feel you've let go of relationships that no longer served you but haven't yet attracted new ones, be patient. Trust the process. Use this time to deepen your relationship with yourself, to heal old wounds, to integrate your shadow. Because when you love yourself completely, when you become that safe haven for yourself, something magical happens. You no longer seek in others what you've learned to give yourself. You no longer depend on external validation because you've found that inexhaustible source of internal validation. You no longer accept crumbs because you've tasted the full feast of self-love. And it's from this place of fullness, of psychological integrity, that we can truly connect with others on a deep level. Not from need, but from overflow. Not from lack, but from abundance. Not from fear, but from love. Know thyself was the maxim inscribed in the Temple of Delphi, and Jung adopted it as the fundamental principle of his work. Because when you truly know yourself, when you embrace all your parts, when you love yourself completely, there's no room for half relationships, for incomplete loves, for superficial connections. You deserve complete love. You deserve to be seen, valued, and celebrated in your totality. And that love begins with you. It begins with that revolutionary act of choosing yourself, of prioritizing your well-being, of honoring your truth. It's not selfishness, it's psychological health. It's not narcissism, it's healthy self-love. It's not isolation. It's the first step toward deeper and more meaningful connections. Because as Jung taught us, only when we love ourselves completely can we love others in the same way. So today I invite you to make that commitment to yourself. To look in the mirror and tell yourself, I choose me. I love myself completely. I will not accept halves. And then, watch how the world around you begins to reflect this new truth. How people who cannot honor your wholeness naturally drift away, while those who resonate with your authenticity naturally draw closer. This is what Jung would call individuation, that process of becoming who you really are, of integrating all your parts, of realizing your unique potential. And although it's a path that only you can walk, you're not alone. Millions of souls are awakening to this same truth, are choosing themselves, are refusing to accept less than they deserve. You're part of this collective awakening. You're part of this evolution of consciousness that Jung anticipated. And every time you choose yourself, every time you refuse to accept halves, you're contributing to this global transformation. He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakes. It's time to wake up. It's time to look within and discover that treasure that has always been there, your authentic self, complete, worthy of total love. Don't settle for less. Don't accept crumbs when you deserve the full feast. Don't let anyone love you halfway when you are worthy of complete love. As Jung would say, be who you were meant to be, and you will set the world on fire. If this message resonated with you, if you felt that spark of recognition inside, share it with someone you think needs to hear it. Sometimes, a few words can be the seed of a profound transformation. And you never know who's waiting for exactly what you have to offer. Remember, loving yourself completely isn't a destination. It's a journey of self-discovery, of self-acceptance, of self-compassion. And although there will be challenges along the way, although there will be moments of doubt and fear, the reward is immense. Because when you love yourself completely, when you refuse to accept halves, you become a magnet for authentic love, for deep connections, for the full life you've always deserved. So today, right now, make that commitment to yourself. Look in the mirror and tell yourself, I choose me. I love myself completely. I will not accept halves. And then, watch how your life begins to transform, how your relationships begin to reflect this new truth, how your external reality begins to align with your inner world. Because as Jung taught us, what you deny submits you, what you accept transforms you. And you, my friend, are ready for that transformation. You're ready to love yourself completely. You're ready to never accept halves again. If this video has impacted you in any way, don't hesitate to leave a comment sharing your experience. In what part of your life have you been accepting halves? What steps are you taking to love yourself completely? Your story could be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos like this one. Together, we're creating a community of people committed to their personal growth, to their authenticity, to their inner power. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And that step is the decision to choose yourself, to love yourself completely, to not settle for less than you deserve. As Carl Jung would say, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. It's time to wake up. It's time to shine with your most authentic light. It's time to love yourself completely and not accept halves. The world is waiting for the most authentic version of you. And that version begins now, with this decision, with this commitment to yourself. Thank you for being here, for dedicating this time to your personal growth, to your conscious evolution. See you in the next video, always remembering Jung's wise words. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become.